of the sine qua non sub-pillars of the sustainable development, which cannot be achieved without the volunteering services, of course, in the context of the global ethics. And considering ethics as a part of the culture, and considering again culture as the third pillar of the sustainable development, as referred and suggested, maybe by the Culture 21 agenda before 4 years in Bilbao, Spain, during the Bilbao summit. Today, we are going to dive deep, inshallah, with Dr. Avran, valuable training with our topic, and we'll have the opportunity to receive your questions to be answered by him after the lecture, inshallah, by raising your hands. Dear participant, let me reintroduce our guest briefly, since you know him well from the first session. Dr. Avran Tok is the Assistant Dean of Innovation and Community Advancement of College of Islamic Studies at Hamad bin Khalifa University in Doha, Qatar. He is Associate Professor and Program Coordinator of Master Program in Islam and Global Affairs. He's the co-director, and research cluster.
They got this information before, so if you don't mind, can we skip that?
Okay. And as you know, mashallah, he has a lot of privileges, mashallah. Before starting the session, I will ask you again, dear participants, to mute your microphones for having a more effective session. Dr. Avran, welcome again. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you so much, Brother Mohammed. And I'm sorry I interrupted you. I just want to kind of give more time to the students rather than they hear second time. Like, I know that you want to do something good. Don't get me wrong. It's just that they heard about it. So I don't want to take their time with me, because this session is about them, right? So it's not about me. So it's I'm just the facilitator. But thank you so much for your kind words. So likewise, the first session, actually, I will first start with sharing my screen once again. And so there's some people in the waiting room. I get that message, but I think it's because I am the host or something.
We are dealing with them now.
Okay, good.
Involved.
Good. So everybody is actually remembering the kind of the heart that I was showing earlier. And I'm sorry, it's actually, I have to close down my email because it's going to keep coming. I need to close this and present. So everybody is remembering the heart, and we started with the gentleman in Turkey, like from the 1940s, and then I briefly talked about the capacities and competencies for and objectives for global citizenship, the three of them, like cognitive, social, emotional, and behavioral. And then we kind of critically analyzed the fact that it doesn't really take enough consideration of the localities and the specificity of the local, and that each locality has its own ways of handling perspectives and creating their own own problems that are both local and global at the same time, and or kind of at different scales. I told you that there was actually some kind of this the need to kind of give more sensitivity, especially like educational pedagogies and educational modalities that help the students better understand the reality, because not every one of us actually is able to reach out to the reality, or the problems that other people suffer. So for that reason, actually, it's important that we create some educational models that help students experiment with the reality. That's kind of critically important. One area there were many other areas that I was doing, but one area that actually I wanted to show you now is who volunteers more, or what are some of the parameters of volunteerism. So this is actually the map of US and the United States of America. And this is a very recent study by Barna, and it's a very like reputable, very credible study. And this actually shows the cities, the top 10 cities of US, and top 10 cities with the highest levels of volunteerism. So, and the first city is Harrisburg, Lancaster, and second one is Green Bay, Appleton, Austin, Greenville, Spartanburg, Nashville, San Diego, etc. Do you know the commonality of these cities? Can anyone just give an idea of like what makes these cities kind of like who can tell me a kind of one commonality of these cities? You can put in the chat box if you want. If I can open the chat, of course. Okay. So why, like, so these are the top 10 cities of like US in terms of volunteerism. And what can be one reason why they're in top 10? High immigration rate, high rate of homeless people, no. Immigration rate, no. So youth population is high, no. Outskirts, no. Education, no. Keep going. Okay, I'll tell you. These cities are also, so 8 out of 9 of these cities are also United States top 10 cities of religiosity. So which means that these cities are also very well known with their Catholic perspective. So there's more people who practice religion, Catholicism, and there's actually this, so people in general, according to other surveys, people in these cities are more religious relatively more religious compared to other cities of US. And also this is not surprising, like all like, look at this, most of the cities are from the south of US, right? And Rumeysa is saying that, yes, they have tight sense of community. That's one of the reasons, right? That's like a religiosity. So, but then that's an important question. So when you are more religious, do you tend to engage more in like volunteerism? Is that the case? So it seems that actually like in US, this is the case actually, that more like most of the cities in top 10 volunteerism, they're also quite religious. To me, that's like a very, very interesting observation. It's like we cannot say that religiosity causes more like volunteerism, but if you go to the Bible, you can see actually it's like a lot of references in every religion. By the way, there are a lot of references about volunteerism. And there's actually, I was teaching one course about innovation and well-being. And in that course, I was literally looking into different faiths and different groups of faith and comparing like Christian faith, Islamic faith, like Buddhist faith, Judaist faith, and how in these faiths actually there are like for instance, like environment is understood, like volunteerism, inequality is understood, poverty reduction is understood. Like for instance, like this is a section from the Bible, which is like Luke. The section Luke actually is, by the way, is one of the most popular about there's a lot of interesting story kind of sections in that area. It says section 33, Luke section 33 from the Bible, Holy Bible, and sell your possessions and give to the needy. Provide yourself with money bags that do not grow old, with a treasure in the heavens that doesn't fail, where no thief approaches and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will your heart be also. Or look at the Galatians, for instance. For you were called to freedom, brothers. Only do not use your freedom as an opportunity to the flesh, but through love serve one another. For the whole law is fulfilled in one word: you shall love your neighbor as yourself, which is actually supporting the people around you. Or another script actually from Titus, Titus is number 14. Let our people learn to devote themselves to good works so as to help case of urgent need and not to be unfruitful. this is again a very clear relation to volunteerism. Or Matthew 20:28, even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. So imagine that actually like people with very strong Catholic faith, and to be honest with you, Catholic charity organizations and civil society organizations like Catholic Relief, for instance, is one of the, because University of Notre Dame in US is one of our partner organizations. And when we were building our global studies, global affairs program, we actually work with them. And University of Notre Dame in Chicago, actually in US, in South Bend, they're a Catholic school. So for us, they were really good because we were building the Islamic version of it, and how the Islam is a source of humanitarian action. Islam is a source of conflict transformation, conflict resolution, so on and so forth. So when we were doing it, we realized that Catholic world, different Catholic organizations, Catholic civil society organizations, Catholic charities, especially Catholic Relief as a global organization, are so strong in terms of like their missionary activities, in terms of their message, in terms of their charity, in terms of their donations, networking, capacity building. So in Islam, in Muslim world, there's also a lot of strength, like Red Crescent and different Muslim charities. I know in Turkey there's quite a bit of actually organizations engaged in Muslim giving and etc. So, but again, Catholic institutions have been actually on the ground for a long time, and they are slightly more institutionalized, and there's room for learning actually. So let me also kind of show you a short video. So one of the things we did was actually that because we were so inspired by like the way actually some other religions were so successful actually, especially in Buddhist faith, by the way, there is a lot of strong elements of how Buddhist faith is very kind of like fertile, so strong in terms of building connections with SDGs. Like, for instance, there's a Buddhist declaration on climate change, for instance. We were trying to see like how we can make better connections between Islam and sustainable development goals. So some of my students and myself, we got engaged in finding some Islamic narratives, okay, from the life of Prophet Muhammad and also Holy Quran, to find out some narratives, some sources where we can actually study them and use them for educational purposes to make specific connections to sustainable development goals. So what we did actually is that it took kind of like quite a while. We really worked on it very hard, but at the end we kind of came up with this kind of a series of videos that we showcased during Maker Majlis, and we have different stories. And one of them is this video. So I will, it's around 4 or 5 minutes. But I want you to watch it with a specific mindset. What does this, and I want you to kind of try to answer this question with only a few words. What are the qualities and characteristics? You remember that when I asked you, like, who is your superhero model as a volunteer, and a couple of you, or maybe more than a couple of you, mentioned the Prophet, right? Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So in this case, this is a story about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I need you to kind of extract the real meaning. So we did the narrative, okay? We animated it. It's a nice story and with a good animation, but I need you to kind of like really grasp and share afterwards in the message part the qualities that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam showcased as the qualities of like a quote unquote good and effective and model volunteer. Okay, so what can we learn from this form volunteerism? So I'm starting it. Whenever it finishes, please in the meantime put your remarks. I will read them, we'll discuss them. Okay, and there's something like there's a scratch here, is annotation or something. I don't know why it's happening, but does anybody know why there's this kind of like the yellow thing is here?
I'm asking our technical team now.
Yeah, I did it. I cleared it, yeah. It was easier than I thought. Okay, I am starting.
There was a man called Julaybib radiallahu anhu, whose lineage was not known. No one knew who his parents were, and he had no clan to protect him. He was a very short man, with deformities on his face. He had no particular talent, nor any skill in combat. This was a man who was rejected by society. Even the children would mock and tease him. No one would permit Julaybib to sit in their company. He was a very lonely figure. The people judged him for his physical appearance and social status, not his character and integrity. Despite this, he was always permitted in the company of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, who treated him with honor and respect. One day, the Prophet ﷺ said to Julaybib, "Ask for something. Is there anything you desire?" Julaybib raised his head and shyly replied, "Oh, Messenger of Allah, Allah has blessed me with your companionship. I get to sit at your blessed feet and hear your blessed words. What more could I desire?" The Prophet ﷺ asked Julaybib if he was interested in marriage. Julaybib wondered if anyone would want to marry him, but admitted that he would be interested. So the Prophet ﷺ went to the house of a neighboring family and said to the father, "I have come to ask for your daughter's hand in marriage." This overjoyed the man until the Prophet ﷺ informed him that he was asking on behalf of Julaybib radiallahu anhu. The man was disappointed and consulted his wife, saying, "The Prophet of Allah ﷺ has asked for your daughter's hand in marriage for Julaybib." The wife began to cry and she said, "No, not Julaybib, anyone but Julaybib. I will never allow this." The daughter heard the commotion and asked what was going on. After the situation was explained to her, she said, "Oh my mother, fear Allah. Think of what you are saying. Are you turning away the Prophet of Allah?" "Oh my mother, it does not suit a believer to make the wrong decision once Allah and His Messenger have decided on a matter. Do you think that the Prophet of Allah will disgrace us?" This moved the mother and she was filled with remorse. She said, "Stop, my daughter, don't say another word. Indeed I have erred, and I repent 1,000 times over. For as of this moment, there is no one I would prefer for you more than Julaybib." Following this, all parties agreed to the marriage. A long time later, Julaybib participated in a battle, fighting for Islam. After the battle had finished, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ asked his companions to check if anyone was missing. Everyone was accounted for except Julaybib. The Prophet ﷺ spoke with tears in his eyes and said, "I have lost my beloved Julaybib. Go and find him." They eventually found his body laying next to 7 people. He had been slain in the battle. The Prophet ﷺ held the body of Julaybib radiallahu anhu and said, "Oh Allah, he's from me, and I'm from him." He repeated this 3 times. This story demonstrates how the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ treated everyone with decency and respect, regardless of their appearance or lineage. The amazing story of Julaybib radiallahu anhu, whose life was filled with challenges and struggles, won the heart and admiration of many through his pure intentions and noble character. The life of Julaybib radiallahu anhu demonstrates how human beings can fulfill their potentials when they are given dignity and equality. This is an ideal example of part of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, more commonly known as the SDGs. What are the SDGs? On the 1st of January 2016, after a historic UN summit, world leaders adopted the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Over the next 15 years, countries agreed to internally mobilize their efforts to end all forms of poverty, fight inequalities, and tackle climate change while ensuring that no one is left behind. The 17 SDGs can be grouped into 5 categories. People is to end poverty and hunger in all forms and ensure dignity and equality. Planet is to protect our planet's natural resources and climate for future generations. Prosperity is to ensure prosperous and fulfilling lives in harmony with nature. Peace is to foster peaceful, just, and inclusive societies. Partnerships is to implement the agenda through a solid global partnership. In value of treating all men and women, in particular the poor and vulnerable, with equality and dignity, demonstrates the need to leave no one behind and is an ideal example of the people goal. Islam in a global world, because faith is change, because faith is action, because faith is impact.
Okay. I hope you liked it actually. Again, like it took quite a while for us to write the script and find the kind of the historical, Islamic references. And for every SDG, we have a video. Like it's like it was really like a really interesting exercise. Some of you were actually asking about the video, if I can share share with you. Unfortunately, I cannot share right now because I'm still trying to actually finish this copyright issue. And before taking the copyright, I cannot share it in public. But for every SDG, believe we have a different video, and all animated, and all of them are connected. So we are trying to build a lot of connections between Islam and SDGs. But exactly, like, so what do you think about volunteerism here? Like what kind of lessons that we can take? It's inspiration and moving, but apart from that, what are certain qualities showcased by the Prophet and also like Julaybib, like that we can think of? Uplifting the weak, definitely. That is why it's like a heart, right? It's like a getting into it, like all the problems that Julaybib was suffering in the so volunteerism is one of the tenets of faith, right? Well-being, uplifting people's well-being, right? Because when you empower people through humanism, true, but this separatism is not just like, I was just sharing with you some sections from the Bible, and essentially there are a lot of commonalities and exactly like fair-mindedness, right? So so I believe, apart from the kind of the anything kind of that materialism, this is really like a so thank you so much Long Track Vili Anderson from Cameroon about faith as the core of volunteerism. It's important, and Iman, that's really important. So this is how you should guys think about volunteerism, apart from like just a kind of like a small, and it's also about the sustainability. Once you have that kind of faith element embedded in your actions, in that's kind of the your behavior is like driven by your faith and your iman and your actually support to the world without any expectation, that comes back, right? And this is how strong leaders actually honesty, dignity, equality. That's excellent. So these three, that's a nice extraction from the video. I really kind of like their Noor. Thank you so much for this, like honesty, dignity, equality. That's a very well kind of like a nice 3 words actually. And this is the way, that's why I think that leadership is important here, because good leaders are good volunteers, right? So compassion is a good form of leadership. So I want to move on. And after this section, we did this. Basically, I was planning to delve a little bit into, this is a nice illustration. I was actually working with my assistant, like Bayanj, who actually prepared this for us. And it's a good illustration. This is like a nice mind map about ethical theories or frameworks. And this is something that you should think of. Okay, this is something really important. It looks a bit complicated, but I can just very briefly explain to you. There are some like 4 or 5 major approaches understanding kind of the ethical perspectives. One of them is actually the kind of the utilitarian approach, and this is more about how can you maximize benefits to society and minimize harms. So how can you maximize when we do something, course of action, like is it just about do what is right, or how we maximize benefits? This is a good perspective, but it can also have some drawbacks, because you always think about, you have to take into consideration some alternative frameworks, alternative actions, and their consequences. And sometimes utilitarian approach is easily justified to go for a war, because if you believe that going to a war or fighting is the course of action that will maximize the benefit of the society, then it's a kind of a problem, right? So virtue ethics is about common good, and it's about community standards. And virtue ethics actually is more about the integrity of the moral actor, so the person who is morally driven, rather than the act itself. So virtue ethics is more about showcasing that virtue. So like acting in a way that is kind of like that keeps integrity, rather than kind of like doing things that kind of contradict with each other. So based on virtues. So like honesty is a virtue, right? So you expect an honest person. So you can say I'm an honest person, and honesty is my morality, is one of my strongest values. So I act in an honest way, and the community is expecting me to be an honest person, so I will be honest. But if you are in the utilitarian approach, you might be an honest person, but if the whole community believes that actually dishonesty is a norm, and it's okay as long as actually people survive, we make profit, we earn, and kind of like there's money around and stuff, because dishonesty might increase your utility, it might be a problem. So deontological theories are more about theories that are arguing that it's like, I mean, we need this is actually the kind of the basis of the United Nations framework, that come up with some universal, some generalizable concepts, that come up with a framework. Like Kant is definitely Immanuel Kant. If I'm not sure if you, some of you have maybe studied actually in political science or international relations courses, or maybe a few others, or philosophy courses, or could be history. So it's interdisciplinary actually. Kant's work is very well known. It's about the categorical imperative, that actually creating these categories are important. So universal values. So value is not just about the kind of moral character. Value is not just something about utility, but value is something universal. So Kant cares about like values that are valid across time and space. That is why they call it the kind of the principles of universality. And ethics of care is more about thinking of interdependence among different entities, and you kind of you care for people who need the most actually. So who are the ones actually? So moral perspective differs. So when there's a person, let's say, suffering, but you know that that person is well supported, you don't sometimes care. But if you see a person that needs more help, and no one, and homeless, and kind of like no family, no friends, no money, no support, then in that case you tend to kind of like you show your care because you know that that person is like a troubled situation. This is actually like also related to emotional intelligence, because these situations require more empathy, and you tend to give more priority to the people who are more vulnerable. So we call the ethics of care. So you kind of like start with the kind of fact that that person, and if there are two people who need the same extra care, but one of them has a strong family, but the other one is no family, you tend to support the person without the family. It's ethics of care. So virtue ethics is more about the kind of the community standards that are named as virtuous. And it's more about the action, you know. The utilitarian is slightly different. Deontological is more about universality. Ethics of care is about actually categorizing people and looking at the one who is more vulnerable. So these are the major theories, and there are actually some frameworks. This is something that I like a lot, actually. I was doing this with my colleagues at Colorado, and we kind of implemented this. This is for model for ethical decision making. You first define the dilemma, what kind of dilemma, what kind of ethical dilemma or ethical conundrum that you are talking about. And then afterwards, is it like personal? Is it professional? Is it social ethical dilemma? Or is it like a professional, legal, whatever? Because volunteers are also like, they face ethical dilemmas on a daily basis, right? It's the whole situation, right? Like who to care, who to help, how to help, which mechanisms to utilize when you're helping. So, and then afterwards, you create alternatives for solving an ethical dilemma, like a, and this is, by the way, my whole master's program is about, that I do with students, this theory of change. You create actually a stakeholder map, like persona analysis, empathy mapping, these kind of like, you create different analysis of the situation, okay? And then afterwards, after you come up with different courses of action, you actually start analyzing which course of action is right. You know, of course, how to define something right, quote unquote, depends on the context. That is why my critique to UN SDGs or global citizenship actually was important, because they don't really help you to understand what is right in a specific context. They tell you this is right, do that, but everybody should do that. But then we don't know how that action will evolve or kind of like play out in a specific context. And then if you want, I can share this with you, by the way. It's totally fine with me, and you might benefit from it. So these were some kind of like some ethical perspectives. But again, as I told you, I'm not an ethicist. I am not a person of Islamic ethics, but I like to use these frameworks in an interdisciplinary way, because my end result is educational pedagogies. So one of the educational tools that I use, actually, I know some of you might think it's like it's something for the kids, but in the past 15 to 20 years, there has been a kind of a surge in the use of Lego series play as a form of instruction and as a form of educational formation. And I will show you how I make benefit of it. And then afterwards, collectively, we'll do an exercise together, okay? So one side of me is a certified facilitator of Lego series play, and I am involved with strategic play, and it's a part of actually Bricks Without Borders. And what we do actually is that we design different educational designs through Lego series play. So you might wonder, what is Lego series play? Lego series play actually is like a systematic method that enables people to use Lego bricks to solve problems, explore ideas, and achieve objectives. It's like creating a framework. So if you are doing like an entrepreneurship, for instance, we model the entrepreneurial process or any kind of idea through Lego series play. Of course, with people around. It's like a process, creating a process. It's a method, or sometimes it's a tool for communication, for sometimes for like a conflict resolution, peacemaking, etc. So this is interesting, because this is actually coming from the British Museum, and this shows like how different parts of our brain, different parts of our actually like a cortex control different parts of our body. And there are two functions of our bodies, right? There's sensory function. These are like hearing, seeing, smelling, touching, and tasting, right? Through our tongues. And then the other is motor function, which is the movement. So if our brains, if our bodies are kind of like scaled, or how would our bodies would look like if it is actually scaled according to the section of the brain that deals with that section. See, this is how we would look like. We would have huge hands. Why? Because most of our learning is coming from, most of our sensation, most of our sensory functions are happening through our hands. Look at how many times I move my hands when I'm talking. Or in a day, how many times you move your tongue. Look at those tongues. Look at the mouth of this person. Huge. Look at the eyes. Huge. Look at the ears. Huge. So if the parts of our brain that is related to sensory functions are scaled according to our different organs, this is how you would look like. Which means that most of our sensory, most of the way we experiment the world is happening through our hands and tongues and mouth and eyes and ears, right? And yet, most of the educational models, most of the ways we teach volunteerism, anything actually, is based on students get into the classroom, listen to the teacher, don't talk, don't go out, don't cheat, don't talk, don't this, we kind of repress the students to not to talk, right? So that is why I kept telling you guys it's experiential method is very important, So Lego series play is building on this. It's building on three things actually. It's building on, oh no, what happened? Yes, it's building on three modes of communication: visual, auditory, and kinesthetics. So Lego series play is about thinking with your hands, okay? So you create models, and it's so interesting, let me show you. This is actually from University of Cambridge. Can you believe that actually University of Cambridge, like 4 years ago, for the first time, they hired a professor with the position of Lego Professor of Play in Education, Development and Learning. This is how serious the universities are now taking Lego series play. Paul Ramchandani is the person, actually, the professor who was hired for this position. And there is a huge literature actually right now on this. And I'm right now working on a book about the use of Lego series play. So what I have done last year was I designed a program called Harness Innovation with Moral Values, Experience Sustainable Development Goals, and Lego series play. So what we did actually is that we created some educational and creative environments, and then we talked about, we kind of first create sensitivity towards moral values, and that also takes kind of quite a while. And then SDGs, and then how actually people can ideate through Lego series play. Another version of this, we have this Torba market here, and myself and one of my Qatari colleagues actually, we did another session actually for the whole year in the Torba market. This is like organic food market in Qatar, outside. And we did something about identity. How can we actually explore identities in a global world, especially the identity of green behavior? Why people choose to be green? Why people are like a more cognizant of environment, whereas others not, So we did this in we actually hosted more than 1,000 people in 6 months. So it was really interesting. So what I'm going to do actually is that I will share with you some photographs of some sessions that we handled. And then afterwards, we'll do a joint Lego session together, okay? I will show you a model that I did. Of course, normally we were supposed to be together, and I was supposed to give you, I will show you, for instance. It's supposed to be like this. It's supposed to look something like this. See, we're all together, we are working together, and people have their Legos. First we ideate, and then afterwards they slowly they have their templates, and then they start to build their models. Like for instance, they work on models that, let's say this is the value cards, the community and responsibility. You start building models, and then afterwards we start making connections between the models. Like for instance, this model that we were doing is about business model canvas. So we were using the business model to kind of canvas. Like this is about, for instance, a small model that we discuss about inclusion of special needs students in the classroom, for instance, you know. And then of course it can get really complicated. And this is a session that I did with the PhD students in my school and working people who are working. You see the SDGs, and then what kind of story they are creating and what kind of SDGs they are connected to. And each group create their stories and then their value cards. And like, for instance, this was more about inclusive communication, nonviolent communication. This model was about a paper by Jonathan Wolf. We tried to actually kind of create a model of the paper about ethics of unpowered policies. Like, for instance, this was about faith and cooperation. And some models can be quite complicated, by the way. This model is a systems model, for instance, about team building. You can see actually, for instance, that they kind of identify a problem and the resources, and they write in their post-its, and then they make the connections and stuff. So imagine that you work on this in a whole day, and actually, like, to show you how serious things were, this gentleman on the left side is the CEO of an Islamic bank. This is a strategy manager. This is a professor of finance. This is actually a gentleman who works in the government. These are some PhD students. So imagine that actually you bring a lot of minds together, and it can be at different age levels, by the way. But this is community initiative. Initially this was two models, and then the model of community and initiative, and then you bring them together and see how when two people come together, one has the idea of the value of a community building, and then the other one has the idea of initiative, and they come together and they build a model together. And then for each model, they create a story. And that story becomes an idea. And that idea becomes something like a prototype. So this is what we have been using, and it has been, alhamdulillah, working really great. But of course, you need people around to kind of to implement this. So, but it's really interesting. It's really fun. So what I want to do now is I want to actually, there's a model right next to me that I was doing, and I want you guys, please, if you can go to this website, padlet.com. Let me share it with you. I can't. This one. This is the one. Okay. You guys are there, by the way? Like, there's a lot of like very interesting silence. Where's the chat? Oh, here.
It is in the bottom of the screen, sir.
Where? Yeah, I know. Yeah, okay, here. Now I saw, yes.
Okay.
Okay, you guys go to here, okay? So what we're gonna do this. I told you earlier, I tried to actually to emphasize some of the qualities of volunteerism. I kind of like try to build like a model based on different metaphors that actually can lead us to kind of understand and kind of like help us further, okay? Like to kind of discuss things in more detail. So I will actually like show you, like for instance, this is part of the model. Look at this, for instance. I like, you will see them like very like a bit in detail very soon. And look at this, for instance. Or let me went back to the beginning. It's unbelievable. So strange. Okay, so actually this model is right beside me right now, but I want to start with this one. So which one? This one, okay? So what I'm gonna do actually here is go to the Padlet, okay? And I will just go there with this phone, with this iPad, and I will post a photograph of this. And then afterwards we'll discuss what is hidden as a metaphor about volunteerism about this photograph, okay? Okay, I posted. So I don't know how you guys put comments without me showing it, but you can put under the comment section. So look at this one. I just took it now. So this looks like a what? This looks like a vehicle, right? So in a way, volunteerism is like a vehicle, right? It's like an instrument, right? It's not an end, but it's the means to an end. So it's like a vehicle. But then what's happening here? Like these actually like green like pillars are pretty much like the main pillars of volunteerism, right? Like I was telling you, what are the three? Like I put three, but it could be more than three. So the kind of the core values that volunteers. So think about these guys with the backs, you know, like they're kind of the forerunners, volunteers. But then on the back side, there are other people. Like there's actually a lady that you cannot see maybe, but maybe she's seen a bit better here, like with a baby. And then there's a gentleman with a wheelchair. And then these core values are connected to each other. So what do you see here? Can anybody put anything about this? This is the first question. Teamwork, one, oh wow, you already put balance, anonymous, unity, volunteerism, uplifts the community, excellent. Communication, teamwork, balance, excellent. Leave no one behind. So, okay, you said leave no one behind, but look at the back. Who are the people on the back? Volunteerism cannot solve everything. Volunteerism is yes, important, but we cannot expect volunteerism to solve everything. What else? Inclusiveness, teamwork, excellent. Let me see. They realize they are holding hands, moving forward, keeping community in hand. Power, selflessness, continuous cycle, excellent. Excellent. These are really excellent points. Okay, now I have one more question actually. So now I'm gonna post another one. I will clear this, and I will post another one. And now this will actually is slightly more challenging. Can you please not put anything right now? I'll put the new one, okay? Okay, now we have three actually. So I put them in three different columns. So the first one, communication equality, this is the one actually I'm talking about. My first question, there is some money on the backside of the car, right? What do you think that is actually? And they kind of, it's helpful, it's like $10. So there's this whole volunteerism as an instrument. What is it? If you can please write under the column, that would be great actually.
Limited resources, can you say so?
Exactly, limited resources, but also you need to recognize that in the past, the government sector used to support, please write under the column their colleagues, otherwise it will get confusing. The amount of money is not the goal, but still money is important. It's not that, so donations is important, but now, remember we talked about corporate social responsibility, the source of funding is changing. In the past, the government was actually more about like providing support for volunteer sector, but now the private sector, charities, philanthropic organizations, civil societies, other organizations are also into the picture. This is like and also sometimes money is like sometimes money is like is not in a kind of a financial form, but it's in the form of other kind of like other formats. If you can please write under, is it underneath? Oh, it's going this. Sorry, resource options. If you can put words, I think it's better. Circular economy. So that's good. That's the money. So there's one simple part actually that I want to make a reference to. Who drives the car? Who drives the vehicle? Of course, the forerunners are the volunteers, but who drives it? Who is in the driving seat? Any answers? Crowdfunding is a critical perspective, by the way.
Like say donors.
Donors, yes. But who is driving? Who is in the driver's seat? Say this is the driver's seat. Who is driving the whole volunteer economy or volunteer sector?
I think it's sustainability.
Stability?
Sustainability.
No. I'm asking literally, what do you see in the driving seat?
I think it's the community.
There is a tree.
Yes, exactly. There's a tree in the so this is a metaphor. So what does it symbolize?
The community.
No.
Tree.
Yes.
Environmentally friendly.
Nature.
Environment.
Think a bit more. So this is can you see this, guys? Like this, the tree is at the forefront driving wheel. Trees are like representation of what? Like usually trees. Like tree of what?
Sustainability.
True. There is a very famous actually kind of metaphor called tree of knowledge. Okay, and here the tree is actually representing the tree of knowledge specifically, which is also a very quite spiritual thing. And I'm not sure if you know, but it's like, this is a really fantastic, I really find it very, very fantastic actually, kind of connection. So this is actually a photograph from Iraq, the city of El Qurna, okay? And this is actually called tree of knowledge, okay? Symbolizing the Garden of Eden, where the Prophet Ibrahim actually prayed here 2,000 years ago. And this is very well known tree of knowledge. And tree of knowledge, according to any historians, it's like it represents, it symbolizes the spiritual and the material, and the balance between the spiritual and material. So when I was doing the model, actually, I wanted to put the tree here just to showcase that actually that it's like the volunteer sector is driven by both like the knowledge of technical knowledge and faith-based knowledge, but the value-based knowledge. So, and it needs to learn, right? Like for instance, let me tell you something. What do you see these guys doing here?
Helping.
Who?
Creating connections.
They are helping each others.
No, this specific one. Let me try to maybe he's more visible here. This may not visible here. Maybe more visible here. This guy, he's holding a what? Web, right? What does it represent? Web. When I say web, the guy holding a web, what will it represent?
It might represent catching opportunities or restraining the wastes.
So tell me 3 words and ending with web. What web?
World Wide Web.
Yeah, World Wide Web, excellent. So this guy is holding it, he's a volunteer, but some people cannot move, go ahead, but there is a lot of increasing tendency for online volunteering, right? For instance, there is this one new initiative, one of my colleagues actually in UK actually started. It's about helping refugees through online education. And so there are new ways of volunteering, but entirely online, teaching languages, like counseling and so many other things. So volunteers now are not just on the field, but also they can volunteer through actually through different online means. That's a possibility. But then I want to ask you, what do you see in the middle? These guys are holding another net. What does it represent?
If net, it might be network.
And look at this. There is a boat, and in the boat there are some people, and the first person here on the boat actually looks a bit kind of like in distress, right? And then there's babies and people, and some people in the boat, they are connected to the web, which is the internet, and they're getting support. Think of these people as the people who need support. Some of them are getting support through internet, but others can't, right? But this guy is trying to jump from here to here, and look at this guy hanging. So there are people who want to kind of who are in between. They take risks. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So some people want to take risks. This is the question that your friend asked me actually. How do I manage a social enterprise How do I manage a political objective, and how do I manage economic gain and volunteerism at the same time? But this is the kind of mindset that you are talking about. You don't want to be here. You don't want to be here. You try to actually be in between. You try to juggle many different things. But then this is the safety net that I can tell you, actually, by the way. I see this as a safety net of a society, that sometimes society will support this guy who might fall down. But if that is why faith is so important, this iman is so important, that this safety net really helps the society kind of stay intact if there's a crisis. Because the capacity of these people in this vehicle may not always be enough to support this guy. Maybe there's not enough space. Even look at this, actually, this whole model. It doesn't even have a engine. It has some kind of like turbines, right? It's like it doesn't. It goes through. It's natural, right? It's sustainable. You got the point?
Yes.
Good. This was just a kind of from
Yes.
one. So from one modeling, you can come up with so many different kind of how to say stories and kind of metaphors. Let's do one more, and then we can finish with that. This time I will clear this, and I will take 2 or 3 photographs, and then we can discuss the next one. Okay, we have 3 more posts, actually. So these 3 are all connected, by the way. Okay, and the way I was designing to create a story here is the first one on the right hand side. Let's start with this. So what do you see here? There's a group of people, right? They're around a table, and they have these magnifiers, and one of them is actually making an announcement. What might it symbolize? You can put them as comments if you want. Or you can just simply open your mic and tell me. Both of them are fine. Success, announcing danger news. Okay, that's a perspective. So there's actually you can also see these people here, by the way, on the right hand side, right? They have their computers, they have their magnifiers. So I wanted to actually kind of showcase this duality that some people they network, but there is this kind of high level understanding of volunteerism and a low level of understanding of volunteerism. Yes, scaling. Some people they want to distribute roles, but at the same time they believe that the direction of volunteerism can be discussed at the policy level. So I want to make the case that there's a policy level, high level politics, that people talk about the future of volunteerism, but also what's happening on the ground. So the people here on the back, see, they are volunteers. They are climbing up the ladders. So they are doing the hard work. They are the ones who know what's happening. But the other ones, they are actually they are more the policymakers. And volunteers are affected by that, right? I mean, the whole sector is affected by this the policy. So think about this as the realm of policy making. More senior politicians, policymakers, experts, they want to make good, they want to make policies, but we don't know whether actually like these policies. Hello.
Yes, doctor, we are hearing you.
Okay.
Dear participants, please mute your microphones.
I like this actually concept of ivory tower. Exactly. So in volunteerism, actually, some people have this kind of very idealistic, actually, like disconnected from the society about like what it means to be a volunteer. What does it mean to have a strong volunteer sector? So this is very important. So okay, we got that part. So what's happening here? You see that actually there are different volunteers, but look at this. They're at different levels. So this is okay, you know, like there will always be volunteers at different levels. So some people are taking more responsibility, taking less, but then you see on the back, there are sharks. So there is a lot of dangers, there's a lot of potential threats, right, for volunteerism. And these are actually the kind of different pathways, like these kind of like pipes, you know, like, but all these pipes are, if you look at here, these pipes, so this is actually the kind of the question that I wanted to leave you with. I told you earlier that often we use tree, like for education, for instance. Tree is a very famous concept. Look at Qatar Foundation, they use cedar tree. For many organizations, they use trees, and they use kind of like, because tree has the roots and it grows and its branches and this and that. And it's a very strong metaphor. Like if something is strong, you say it's like a tree, you know, it's a very strong, it has very strong symbolism. But then I wanted to put a tree, but then different voluntary activities with different combinations of pipes, colors, meaning different tools, different techniques, they all kind of like, they are supposed to serve the same purpose, and they go back to the roots. But it's not just a tree, it's way more complicated than that. It's an opportunity space, it's an engagement space, but it is actually our job is to identify these new opportunity spaces. It's our job actually to kind of to ensure that these are, so what does the rope mean? In my view, the kind of this rope between the volunteers, it's supposed to elevate them, so they shouldn't fall down. But also each volunteer might kind of like drag the other one down. It's also, I see it a lot, you know, like it's in the volunteer sector. There's one organization rising, but the others are saying no, they shouldn't do that, etc. So let me see some of your comments. Different levels, but all connected. Excellent. Different ways, same goal. Different levels, but carry the same rope. Okay, excellent. Ivory tower, distribution of roles. Excellent. Standards. It's standard in what way? Standard. I didn't get that. So Messaline FOMO, you want to say something? Please. Let's open for Q&A. I think it's like 6:15. I think it's a good time. Different pathways of volunteerism from simple to complex. Excellent. You guys are perfect.
Okay, doctor. Then we can pass to the Q&A session.
Yeah.
Okay, with pleasure. Dear participants, we are expecting your questions by raising hand, please. Here we can start.
So you can also, by the way, if anyone wants to reflect on this whole Lego series play thing, as I told you, normally it's supposed to have all the people on the table. It takes time to build models, first individual models, then shared models and stuff. I wanted to kind of just illustrate a small version here. Inshallah, in the future, if we have a chance to be together, we can do really big system models actually. Like, and if you look at my Instagram profile, if you scroll down the photographs, you can see a lot of activities actually. I once did actually Lego series play with 100 people. So and the good thing actually is that you create them. So it's like thinking with hands, you know. It's really, 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 you know, like different kind of expertise, different kind of like how to say, like thinking level. So it helps a lot to everyone. And it's actually, by the way, we use it for the master's program and PhD program here.
Thank you. We have a question from Karim from Qatar. He's your neighbor, doctor. Karim, the floor is yours now.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Second time.
Yes, second time. So for this time, it will be a question, no more music to your ears. So I would like to ask, as a specialist in the sport field, we deliver everything through sports and everything through games. So education through games and values through games and ethics through games and so on. So what is the major difference between the Lego games and the real actual playing games and playing God for the students or the kids or for the youth?
Lego series play, if you also want to check it out on the internet, there's a lot of sources, like there really a lot actually. As I told you, this is called LSP's Lego series play, and it's also commonly known as play with a purpose. So by the way, play, and there's actually this new term called gamification of education or gamification of learning, meaning that when you learn, it's actually easier for adults, for anyone to learn new things through games. So they call it the gamification of learning. Some of the new models of this is actually to use augmented reality and virtual reality to kind of like for learning experiences.
And
I know
projectors and so on.
That's one, but augmented reality is very, very important now. Not us, but I know when we had this visit to MIT, they had this lab in which their students were wearing this kind of big face cameras, and then they see this augmented reality, and they can actually design a room. That's for the interior designers. Actually, they can design a room, but just like in an abstract way. Like it's so interesting. Like with those glasses, they see the room, and with their hands, actually, they can do it. So so we are now going to a different realm of technological kind of level, and the question is how these technologies can be like widely used for education. That is
and
the kind
integrated.
Yes, and scaling issue. Even now, I feel that with this corona, because the thing is this, you need to create capacity for like in the volunteering sector, for instance. If we can create this capacity, technology also can be used in a very extensive way to train volunteers or for the volunteers to utilize when they're providing services. So how can we make it widespread? Like how can you scale it up? That's the issue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next question from Ahmed Subhi from Egypt. Ahmed, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Professor, for your presentation and efforts. My question is, what are another methods to enhance innovation and like Lego series play? And second one, it's when and how we could see the change on the minds of innovation and enhancing their minds or our volunteers. If we are playing these games with them, how we could see the change on them.
Like evaluation assessment is important. So that is why this is one of the it's a very good point, by the way, Ahmed Supi. I really appreciate that, because often we don't have a baseline. So this is why some of the research we are trying to do is to understand for the educators, for the volunteers, like you need to understand their baseline, where they start with. And the whole idea here is that actually often, like this is one of the critiques to United Nations, especially SDG education and kind of like a or sustainability, that they come up with some templates. Say this is a kind of a lesson plan for 1 hour. Go and apply this lesson plan in your course. Use this to kind of UN volunteers is also doing something similar. Sometimes like I like them a lot, but I admire them. But sometimes I feel that they just have the same templates, and they whenever they go somewhere else, okay, this is our training module. But education should be actually like should be used to enhance people's imagination. That is the whole idea. Like because creativity is different than innovation. Creativity is just coming up with different ideas, but innovation is about taking ideas and creating value added in reality, seeing people a different way of doing things. So that is why innovation is kind of is also very it's strongly a social phenomenon. So for volunteers, everybody is stuck with the idea of a very traditional volunteer sector that people commonly understand, very mainstream. But then with innovation, you can come up with so many modalities in which actually even you can build a nice company or an initiative or an organization as a volunteer company, but then it can actually sustain itself. But you can do it only and only if you kind of realize the people's needs, people's imaginations. There are so many stories about it, like the one that I shared with you, like Chatterbox. Chatterbox is like a UK-based company, and it's established by one of my friends actually. Her mother was like an Afghan refugee. They migrated to the UK, and all her life she wanted to support the migrants. And then she won this award. She became a big company, doing actually like a volunteer. It started as a volunteer, but it turned out to be a company. And there are so many organizations right now, like Schwab Foundation, Ashoka, Skoll Foundation. These are all about volunteerism and social entrepreneurship. So you can actually get funding from these if you get the right idea, but you can get ideas. You cannot just replicate what other people are doing. If you try to kind of use these technologies and kind of not high technologies, Lego series play is not a high technology, by the way. It's still a low technology, but you give meanings, you work with metaphors, you work with symbols. So like honestly, if I hadn't known this, I would never know that there is like a tree of knowledge in Iraq, and it's like it represents spirituality and materialism. So it's one thing leads to another. You get me? So
thank you. Thank you. Ms. Salim Fomo from Cameroon, the floor is yours.
Okay.
Hi.
Thank you very much for this lecture, and I was really interested in the Lego system playing part. But my concern is there any skill set you need to have in order to have this kind of display? Because going through the sample projections you showed us, I had difficulties picturing out the message you're trying to pass, because I realized that one key thing is to know what message you're going to pass, and also let the people who are receiving this message be able to interpret. So if someone really wants to involve into this Lego system play, is there any particular skill set you need to have so that you portray your message well and people also get, the audience also gets it very well?
Look, under normal circumstances, in any Lego series play session that I do, and there are a lot of really big names in this area, and the commonality is first 1 hour or sometimes first 2 hours is skill building. First, you start with the skill building for 2 hours, and then, or sometimes half a day. And then afterwards, individual modeling, and then afterwards, shared modeling, and afterwards, systems modeling. So like, for instance, building a entrepreneurial journey, like taking an idea and putting it as a prototype, you can do it with Lego. Like I do it with the policy students, for instance. We kind of try to build like a policy cycle, policy problem, and then some policy tools and like evaluation techniques. You can do so many things, but you're right. The first stage actually is about skill building, and normally here I cannot do that. I just wanted to show an illustration, but normally yes, there's a skill building process.
Okay, thank you very much.
And also, there's no one message. That's the issue. You want people to feel they're in a safe space, and so for instance, when there's a Lego session, we never allow anyone to watch. So because when people are watched, they cannot be like natural. So we have like groups of 15 to 20, everybody around the table, and then afterwards they get into a different realm. No phone, nothing, you know, just kind of like, believe me, like for 8 hours, 6 hours, they ideate.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Now we have a question from the chat box from Mariama from Oman. She asks, is there any skill set you need to have in order to get the audience? Actually, she answered.
No, Mariam is writing the question and answers for everyone just to follow up.
Okay.
Then
let us continue with Nasra then from Somalia.
Thank you so much, Professor, for your presentation. I'm so excited to be here with you all. My question is, some organizations and companies don't care much about volunteers since they are working without salary, and they behave with them in an unpolite way. and that can make the volunteers disappointed. So what is your best advice you can give for those people, and how do you think it can change that habit? Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question, Nasra. I wish I had a kind of a specific answer to this, but maybe a good idea would be just to kind of opt for organizations that are more institutionalized, that have stronger brand names, and like larger organizations, or maybe choosing organizations to do volunteering like that have a kind of a higher reputation and kind of like some history of good practice. So definitely this is discouraging, but problems happen in different places for sure, especially when United Nations volunteers, when they assign you a different place, there are always problems, but these problems happen in so many different places. Like for instance, just easy, like I do volunteer for beach cleaning here, like over the weekends, and sometimes you go and people see you, like they say, why are you doing here? They're just, like this is a national space. Why are you guys like, you are like violating our privacy and this blah blah. They don't understand the problem that if you kind of keep polluting the beaches, it's a public beach, like in Sea Line, and Ahmed would know it actually, like a Sea Line, or in Khor and other places. Like it's pollution. So people will create problems anyways. Like it's not just the place that you do your volunteership, it's also the people might treat you badly, or the people that you provide the service might be kind of like problematic. So, but always think that they are minority.
Right. The last two questions, Doctor. Now, Rumaisa Yuja from Turkey, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor, for your presentation. Firstly, it was very beneficial. I have two small questions. First is, how did you come up with the idea of using Lego series play as a way of learning? It's quite creative, by the way. As a teacher, I would like to ask what are the differences you realized on yourself or on your students or developments before and after you started playing Lego series play?
Thank you so much. I wonder, what do you teach? Like, where do you?
I teach before in like public learning centers for lifelong learning, English and both Arabic.
In Turkey?
Yeah, in Istanbul, yes.
Oh, okay, that's fantastic.
Thank
so,
you.
I'm happy to provide support if you want to integrate this, like in your teaching. I'm planning to be in Istanbul in the summer, so I'm like last summer also I was there, so I did some sessions. That's a growing area. Like it's I really if you want, shoot me an email. I will send you some sources that you can use in your courses. And you don't need a lot of material, by the way. Like in terms of Legos, you can do a lot with. The first. Let me give you an example. One of the first exercises actually is that we give students like 6 pieces of Lego. Okay. Like there is actually like a. Wait, I'll show you. So this is actually like this is the, I don't know if you guys see, but this is the this is the 8-pin 2x4 8-pin Lego. This is the most standard Lego piece. Okay. Yeah. Most standard Lego piece. And as you know, Lego is like a Danish origin, right? And mathematically, if you have 6 pieces of this, the total combination of different shapes you can do with 6 pieces of this is more than 1 million. You can just kind of calculate. There are calculations online if you want. So my point here is very simple. With very limited resources, it's all about people's, like, there's actually one set, six of these, but some of them are slightly different, but the same. You give everybody the same, and then you ask your students, okay, everybody has 6 pieces of Lego, and create like a duck, okay? each of them create a different duck. And you ask them, introduce your duck to us, or dog, or fish, or whatever. Everybody introduce something different. And this shows that although we have the same sources, exactly the same, identical sources, we come up with different things. So this is one of the things it's really a very important message of LEGO Serious Play. So often we are obsessed with more sources. I need more and more and more to kind of give to all, but no, with little you can do much more. So how I got into this, I'm the Dean of Innovation and Community Development. I always want to improve myself. So it's like on not just LEGO Serious Play, but a few others, but LEGO is definitely, so I had to get my certification, which was a bit like a really painful process. You need to go through a lot of certifications. I had to take 3 courses and 2 months. And because I wanted to finish fast, I had to take 3 of them in 3 different countries. And there are some companies providing actually. Unfortunately, right now it's a little bit pricey. That's the problem, and they don't do the certification often. But if you're interested, check it out. I would recommend a company called Strategic Play. They do workshops in different countries, and you can start somewhere else. If you want to use, again, I'm happy to help, but the official certification process is a little bit cumbersome. I started this because in Qatar Foundation, we really care about innovation, and definitely the kind of this educational model is not working. The old model is not working, and that's a given thing. And it's very difficult to keep students awake for 3 hours, 4 hours in a classroom without their phones, without anything. And in this world of digitalization, it's impossible to keep people in class. If you or in classrooms, they get bored and they kind of they cannot put their attention, their focus is diverting and so on. I'm sure that you know all these. So as educators, we need to actually come up with ways in which students have a diverse ways of learning. So Lego is a popular one, and there are so many sessions, there's so many practices in different parts of the world. Microsoft is using Lego Serious Play for their workforce. Google is using it. Facebook is using it. All big companies are using it for team building. Like for instance, right before the COVID-19, I gave actually a Lego training session for 1 full day to 12 CEOs of different banks here, because they were trying to come up with a joint strategy. So it is really kind of getting popular and people taking it seriously. If you bring 20 people around a table and tell them, okay, sit down, we are having a regular meeting. There's this study showing that people start slowly to go back and then look at their phones, and then each of them different. But Lego Serious Play, if you realize the photographs I was showing you, at a certain levels, they start to stand up and then work together with their hands. So they get into it. So it's all about diverting the attention, and they produce. And there's no rule. So it's in some places they use it for conflict mitigation, team building, prototyping, ideation, for education purposes, for so many different ways. And I wish actually maybe as a kind of a future project, I can come up with a specific program, Lego Series program, that is entirely for capacity building for volunteers. So how can we, the one that I did was very, it's just one site. It's supposed to be built collectively. You see what I mean? So, but thank you for your questions. I appreciate. And if you need any help, you have my Instagram and I think and my email. So feel happy to help.
Many thanks,
you,
Doctor.
Professor.
Now we are with the last question for today. Siti from Malaysia. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum, Professor. It was really nice presentation. So I have a question. For example, in Malaysia, Lego is considered quite pricey. Thus, how do we implement LSP learning in developing or underdeveloped countries, moreover in rural areas? Thank you. Do I need to repeat myself?
Sorry?
Do I need to repeat my question?
I think I got your question. There was like a little of like a background noise when you were asking, but I think I got the gist of your question. I mean, you can implement this in anywhere. As I told you, like Lego Series Play, you can start with very simple sets, And there are actually like a lot of organizations, by the way, they collect Lego bricks and they donate. So if you Google, I will try to find out some of them. In some places, actually, like even just last week or so, like not last week, before it just feels like a week, but it's like 3 months ago when the COVID started. They were doing this Lego collection, old Legos, and they were donating it. So if you get like 100 or 200 pieces, small pieces, which is not much actually, you can easily create a lot of, because the thing is this, like, do you remember the exercise that we did before in the first section, like with the Lego model in between, and then there was like the value superhero and this. Usually I do it with Lego, and then if you create a nice plan and students actually start filling it out, that's it. You don't need much, you know. So it's not the Lego itself. Lego is a tool. The most important thing is actually you need to create the kind of the structure to students. How do you define a problem? Like, for instance, if we had time today, I was planning to do something different here. By the way, something really funny happened to my screen. Some part of my screen now is like shaded with gray. I have no idea what's happening. I was planning to actually do this persona analysis. I'm not sure if you guys know it, but it's another tool for learning, and this one. So like, how do you actually look at the world from a different person's? Like you put the need of the person, the daily problems, so we also do this. So it's not actually the Lego, but it's the tools that you produce actually that's important. It's the structure that you create is what matters. Sorry guys, my computer is really like doing something weird. Oh, okay. Can you see me or?
We are seeing you now.
Okay, great. Because I couldn't see you guys for a while, so. Okay, any other questions or?
No, we are done. Thank you very much, Doctor.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity, guys. I mean, it was really a great day for me. Thank you so much for giving me the floor. I really appreciate, and feel free to interact. And I wish you an Eid Mubarak, and I hope you all are safe and enjoy the rest of your program.
It is our pleasure, Doctor. Actually, each time we are hosting you, we are learning a lot of things.
Thank you.
Special thanks for this nice Lego series play class as well. It is a privilege for our group, I think.
We'll do it in reality one day.
Inshallah, after COVID, inshallah. Thank you very much. Dear Doctor and dear participants, thank you very much. Before closing our session, I would like to thank Mr. Evran again for his amazing presentation and contributions today. And thank you, dear participants as well. And a special thank for ICYF team, projects and media departments for their dedication for the whole day and hard working for the success of this session as well. Inshallah, our next session will be tomorrow on 1 p.m. GMT +3. And we have another session at 2:30, sorry. And finally, dear participants, I would like to invite you to attend our special edition talk tomorrow with His Excellency Ambassador Datko Jafar Shairi, the Secretary General of D8 at 5 p.m. GMT +3 again. Thank you very much for joining us today. I wish you a nice iftar. This is Muhammad Mahdi greeting you. Please stay at home if there is no need to go out. Thank you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام.
Thank you very